All eyes are on the United States, of course, as the 2024 presidential election looms. Now, today was the start of the Republican National Convention, where Donald Trump was going to be officially announced as the party's nominee. He'll be sworn in actually on Thursday. A triumphant Trump, he made an appearance at this conference. And, of course, this was just days after that would-be assassin attempted to take his life. He was met with one hell of a standing ovation. Have a look at this.
Please welcome the next president of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
And of course, the crowd there is chanting "Fight, fight, fight," which is what Donald Trump said as he left the stage on the weekend after that bullet clipped his right ear. Joining me now is elections correspondent at the Federalist, Brianna Lyman. Brianna, have you come to, this is a personal question I know, but have you come to terms yet of what you're living through there at the moment?
God, no. I mean, these last 72 hours have been honestly a whirlwind. And I think for someone in America right now, we have lived through way too many historical events in the past 3 weeks.
There are thousands of conspiracy theories going around, and it's probably a bit early to talk about them, but, you know, I don't like to deal in them. But there is a major security lapse here that happened at that rally. Now, as each hour, it seems to me, goes by, the more worried you get about what they didn't do to protect Donald Trump.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered. We are hoping that the head of the Secret Service detail will step down. She's not willing to step down right now. And what's really disturbing is that the more we go, as the days come on, we're finding out information, for instance, that apparently there were snipers in the very building that the assassin was resting on top of, right? So they were in that building. They clearly knew it was a location to check. There's video footage of rally goers alerting police moments before the shooting, I think up to 2 minutes, saying there's somebody on the roof, right? There's a suspicious man, and nothing was done. So you have to wonder, was this a deliberate lack of security, or was it just so coincidental that every single thing went wrong?
I even read this morning, Brianna, reports that a local policeman who saw the shooter on that roof, who turned around and pointed the gun at him, he then dropped to the ground and did nothing else.
Yeah, and that's something we've also heard. I've also heard reports that that officer then radioed over and said there's someone on the roof, which is when you see, I don't know if you've seen the video yet of the Secret Service sniper. He seemingly reacts very fast and then pulls the trigger and shoots the assassin. But look, when an officer takes an oath to be a police officer in the United States of America, they are effectively saying that they're willing to put their life on the line. And so it's a little concerning that the police officer got scared and backed away, knowing that this man had a gun pointed at the potential future president and the former president.
We move forward now, obviously, with the November election looming. What do you think this has done for Donald Trump's chances, and what do you believe the Biden camp must be trying to work out now how they're going to react to this?
Yeah, I think the Biden administration has seen hurdle after hurdle, because here's the thing. They've pulled their ads down. They might have been restored today, but at least the first 48 hours they were pulled just out of respect for Donald Trump, right? And more importantly, you know, Joe Biden has come out and he said that the United States need to tone down the rhetoric, right? They need to lower the temperature. The temperature has only been raised because people like Joe Biden call Donald Trump Hitler. And so when you call someone Hitler for the better part of 8 years, what do you think that does to the public sentiment, right? People hear Hitler and they rightfully think, oh my God, a horrible person who doesn't deserve to live. But Donald Trump is no Hitler. They just made that comparison because they thought it made them sound good. And now they're kind of being caught flat-footed, because if he was really Hitler, like they claimed he was, they wouldn't be saying, thank God Donald Trump survived. And so now they have to figure out a way to essentially address their voting base and address independent voters without heating that rhetoric up again.
The Democrats' language has been atrocious. We've gone month after month knowing Donald Trump was going to be the nominee, and the Democrats keep talking about this man needs to be targeted, and that's exactly, isn't it, what happened?
Right. Joe Biden recently said, it's time to put, I think, Donald Trump like in a bullseye. It's that type of inflammatory rhetoric that leads people to believe that Donald Trump is a, legitimate threat to democracy or to the republic, and that he needs to be taken out. And it's up to Democrats, I think, to one, issue an apology to Donald Trump, and also to, more importantly, let the American public know that this was just, unfortunately, really inappropriate campaign jargon. And we have a show over here on MSNBC called Morning Joe. It's one of the worst shows you could watch. But the entire panel was pulled off air this morning. They weren't allowed to go on because MSNBC executives realized that that show is ground zero for the hostile and disgusting rhetoric that leads to people thinking Donald Trump, deserves to die because, apparently he's Hitler. So that's an important first step. But I hope to see other networks and other people kind of take that approach. Let's actually tone down the rhetoric. Let's stop calling someone Hitler because we don't like their policy.
The left have no shame, but, the Jack Black comedy band, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, is touring Australia at the moment. One of the guitarists had this to say.
Make a wish, Canada. Don't miss Trump next time. Thank you.
Quite rightly, they've now put the tour on hold. What did you make of that?
Yeah, I saw that video today. It's so disheartening and disgusting, and it's part of a larger problem here in American Hollywood, and clearly now, unfortunately, in Australia. You go back to, I think it was 2017, Kathy Griffin, a really unfunny woman. She held a decapitated Donald Trump head. She held it up with a picture. Snoop Dogg put up a video basically calling for Donald Trump to be killed. Now you have Jack Black laughing at someone saying that Donald Trump unfortunately survived an assassination attempt. And so when you have these people with these very large platforms making it permissible to say these horrible things and to do these grotesque photo shoots, it again sends the message that Donald Trump, needs to be taken out, that that's okay. They're trying to downplay assassination attempts by cushioning the blow, essentially.
Brianna, you've covered Donald Trump for a long time. Are you surprised at how calm he's been since this has all happened and the discipline he and his team are now showing?
Donald Trump has been a very different Donald Trump than 2016 and 2020 in this election cycle, especially this past month. Since the debate, he's been relatively quiet, right? You never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. Then this assassination attempt comes, and Donald Trump's initial reaction is to let the crowd know to fight, right? It's okay to be strong. He's safe. And I think that is a great juxtaposition to someone like Joe Biden, right? Joe Biden goes on a few international trips because he signed up to do that job as president, and then hides in his camp, Camp David, for a week, hides out of the public view. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is literally nearly assassinated. He almost died. And the next day he's out golfing, and then today he's out, seeing the public at the RNC convention. That's a show of unity and strength that Americans are looking for right now, and that we've been sorely lacking for 4 years.
President Biden, look, he's unusually been doing some one-on-one interviews. He sat down with NBC. He was asked about his rhetoric that you and I just spoke about. Here was his reaction.
You called your opponent an existential threat on a call a week ago. You said it's time to put Trump in the bullseye. There's some dispute about the context, but I think you appreciate that.
I didn't say crosshairs. I was talking about focus on. Look, the truth of the matter was, what I guess I was talking about at the time was there was very little focus on Trump's agenda.
Do you buy that?
No, not at all. Look, Joe Biden, the reason he won in 2020, what he campaigned on was, I'm not Donald Trump. He didn't have a message. He didn't have politics or policies that made sense. It was simply, I'm the lesser of two evils. And that worked in 2020. And polling now indicates that that same messaging doesn't work. People are disillusioned with Biden for the past 4 years, especially Black voters, young Black voters. And so they don't really feel that same way. And Democrats have tried to make this race a referendum once again on Donald Trump. But the reality is, after 4 years of Joe Biden's policies versus 4 years of Donald Trump, hearing, threat to democracy doesn't hit the same way it did in 2020, when you realize that you'd rather someone be a fake threat to democracy, because he's not, and have lower gas prices than have high gas prices, can't afford to eat, and can barely put a roof over your head, and at least have someone who, is quiet. He doesn't say things that people necessarily don't want to hear.
The big announcement today is obviously Donald Trump's running mate. He has picked J.D. Vance. I don't know much about him. What do you know about him?
JD Vance was a surprising pick for me. I think Donald Trump, he certainly had easier pathways to reelection. Someone like Senator Marco Rubio, Governor Glenn Youngkin, they appeal to suburban college-educated voters. And that is one of the most important voting blocks for Donald Trump because he had them in 2016. He lost them a little bit in 2020, which didn't help him get over the edge in Georgia and Pennsylvania. I don't necessarily know Vance is going to be that person to bridge that gap. That being said, Vance appeals to Midwesterners. He appeals to middle working class Americans. And Donald Trump has now created this very geographically varied ticket, right? He has the East Coast, JD Vance has the Midwest. And so I do think JD Vance brings that to the table. He is someone who's been a senator for 2 years, so it's not a ton of experience. That being said, about 80% of people don't know who JD Vance is, and that is a benefit because Republicans will not have to run defense for JD Vance, and he'll actually have the opportunity to craft his own narrative about who he is as a senator and who he will be as the vice president.
Well, Brianna, we're in fascinating times. I really appreciate you staying up late for us. Brianna Lyman, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.